let's take a little break from the interesting things, and I'll give you a minute to talk about tennis.
Hey, you never even covered the other game.
Oh yeah, good point. Honestly, I completely forgot this game happened.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome back to the C&C Talks podcast, episode 5 of season 3.
Just a reminder, we release episodes every week, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It's currently Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, at about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time as of us recording this. Now, we got a decently full episode this week. Colin, what's going on?
Yeah, we're going to start with some legal news, as we do more often than not, I would say, these days. If you want to talk about politics right now, you really got to be following what's happening in the legal system. So we're going to start with that ruling in Trump versus E. Jean Carroll. This was the defamation case after E. Jean Carroll alleged that Donald Trump raped her back in the 90s. Statute of limitations was up, so Trump couldn't be indicted for it. But E. Jean Carroll sued him for rape and defamation because he made comments about her after she accused him of raping her that were defamatory. And so there was a trial a few months ago that we covered. Trump was found liable for rape and for the defamation. This trial here was just for damages, and Charlie, there were a lot of damages, over $83 million to be exact.
Yeah, and whenever these huge sums of money that he has to pay come up, we always bring up the question, where's this money coming from?
Oh, I don't think he can pay it. I think he can. I think he'd have to, sell some property, though, probably.
Well, and you have to imagine that his political action conferences are helping him with this. You have to imagine that they are.
Oh, he's absolutely going to be, stealing money from it, but I also don't expect him to just be willing to just give up the money. It's going to be a long fight for E. Jean Carroll to actually get that money. Now, of note, he cannot appeal this unless he actually puts up the $83-ish million first, something that I don't think he'll do, so we'll see if he even appeals this or not. He says he has the money, of course, because, of course, he says he's the richest person on Earth, but does he actually have the money? I don't know. He definitely won't put it up. This is a big win for E. Jean Carroll. Trump, at least so far since the ruling, has not continued to make defamatory statements about E. Jean Carroll, which is a win for Carroll. It's a win for women in general to feel like they can finally speak up about this sort of thing and actually have their voices heard. So really important there. Now, Charlie, the trial itself, just a disaster for the Trump team. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, she may be the worst lawyer that Trump has ever had representing him. And that is saying something, given some of the people that he's had. He had Roy Cohn representing him a long, long time ago. Roy Cohn then obviously disbarred at some point. He was obviously originally a close associate of Joe McCarthy. He's had Michael Cohen representing him. Michael Cohen went to prison for 3 years. Rudy Giuliani represented him. We all know what happened to Giuliani. That was not good. Bruce Castor, if you remember him at that Trump impeachment trial, just an absolute disastrous showing from him. Sidney Powell's represented Trump. Jenna Ellis has represented Trump. The amount of lawyers that Trump has had that have gone to jail or been indicted is it's a long list, and yet somehow Alina Habba may be the worst of them all. She didn't even seem to understand what the trial was about, right? She thought that it was her job to argue that Trump didn't rape E. Jean Carroll, that Trump did not defame E. Jean Carroll. But what she forgot, and what the judge had to repeatedly point out throughout the trial, is that was already decided. That was established fact. That was established in court months ago. This trial was only about damages. The argument from the Trump team should have been, this is the amount that we think that we should have to pay, or really, we don't think we should have to pay money at all. Here's why, blah, 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 right? That's not how Haba argued it. She argued Trump didn't do this stuff. That wasn't a valid argument in the case. So she comes out yelling about how all of her defenses were stripped. That's not true. You were just trying to defend something that wasn't the case.
Now, careful here. Let's not get into a defamation case of our own.
Oh, we won't.
Let's move on now.
We won't.
Let's move on now to the southern border, a point of contention, as it usually is.
Absolutely.
Colin, what's going on between the Supreme Court, Texas, Biden, and 26 other governors?
Yeah, I mean, so there's kind of two things happening here. I'll start with the potential for a border deal in the House, because the something everyone in Congress kind of agrees on is that the border is something of a disaster. They describe it to various levels of bad. Republicans keep calling it an invasion. So Biden says, okay, let's pass a border security bill. I'll sign it if you can get a bipartisan bill to my desk. I'll sign it. Great. They draft up a bill in the Senate. One of the leading Republicans, James Lankford, he was one of the leaders in crafting this bill. He has since been censured by the Oklahoma State Republican Party for leading this bill because after this bill was written, after it seemed to be agreed on, Trump put in a phone call to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and said, I don't want this bill to be passed because it hurts me, because it's a win for Biden. I want to be able to campaign on the border, and this would hurt my chances of doing that if Biden actually does something successful. So these guys in Congress, despite saying, oh, the border's an urgent threat, we need to do something about it now, say, okay, we're going to do nothing about it, even though Democrats are perfectly willing to do something about it. And now we're going to blame all of this on Biden, Charlie, which is just ridiculous, of course.
I mean, that's always their plan, isn't it? They are willing to tank the country just so they can make their side look better.
Correct. They don't care about the border. They don't really care about any issue. We've talked about this before, but they really just want to use the issue to weaponize it against Biden so that Trump can win the White House in November. Now, the other part of this is, yeah, Charlie, you mentioned the Supreme Court. Texas put up razor wire on the border, including in the Rio Grande, to stop migrants from getting across. But really, this was more than that. This was about cruelty. This was designed to stop Border Patrol from rescuing drowning migrants as they tried to cross. Right? People shouldn't be crossing illegally. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean that we should let them drown. We should actually be trying to save their lives. And especially Texas and Greg Abbott, they keep saying, we're pro-life, we're super pro-life. This is just proof that you're not, if you're perfectly okay with people drowning in the river. In fact, you making it more likely that people drown in the river. So the Biden administration said, no, Customs and Border Patrol is being blocked here. That is not okay because the borders are the job of the federal government. It says that in the Constitution. So they went to court, to the Supreme Court, and they won in a very slim 5-4 majority win. Honestly, it should have been 9-0, but, you know, some justices disagreed with me, Clarence Thomas being one of them, of course, and Texas said, no, we don't care that you ruled this way. We're going to keep doing it anyway. We are going to violate what the Supreme Court has said. We're going to keep putting it up, Charlie. And then every other Republican governor except for one, Phil Scott of Vermont, said, yeah, okay, we agree with you, Texas, and some states have offered to send their state National Guards to help fight for Texas, which is looking like that's the first step towards a full-out civil war, Charlie. I mean, we are entering a dangerous place when we just completely ignore the Supreme Court, and then we start to send the National Guard essentially to fight the federal government. That is just an extremely dangerous place for a nation to be in when for half the country Supreme Court rulings do not matter, especially a big conservative majority on the court right now. They don't care because they rule against them on one case.
Yeah, just to talk about a couple of the points that you referenced. Yeah, I think it is interesting that Texas is completely against any federal intervention. But as soon as there's a flood or there's a natural disaster, they're the first ones that run to try to get support from the government.
Exactly, because Texas gets more money from the federal government than they send out via taxes. They are dependent on the federal government. California's not. New York's not. Most Republican states are. Most Democratic states aren't. That's just a fact. And Texas has proven time and time again that they don't know how to run their state. I mean, look at their power grid, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another example. And the other thing I wanted to briefly touch on is, yeah, this does set a very dangerous precedent. While I wouldn't say that we are on the road, that we are to the point of a civil war yet, I think that we are on the beginnings of the road to get to one if things like this continue. If states continue to defy the federal government and rulings passed down by the court, of course, another potential way that could spark is with states removing presidential candidates from the ballot, which is already happening. No matter how much sense it makes and how legitimate some of those claims to remove Trump from the ballot are, they also do set a dangerous precedent for other parties because given what the Republicans have done, that they're going to try to find a way to remove Biden from the election, which is what they're trying to do by attempting to impeach him.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that, but I'd also say, like, it was the courts in Colorado that kicked Trump off the ballot, and it was Maine citing a court ruling in Colorado making that same decision. And of course, if the Supreme Court rules that Trump can remain on the ballot, as I think everyone expects them to, then I think you won't hear much more about that. You'll hear a lot of people disagreeing with it, but I don't think you'll still be hearing people taking their names off the ballot.
Yes,
will
because
Republican states try the same thing? I don't know, but Democrats actually care about democracy, and so no matter how much they disagree with the court rulings,
they will follow it.
Them. Exactly.
All right, let's move on now to I don't know, should we call Trump a celebrity here?
No, we really shouldn't.
We have a battle of famous figures. Two very different ones, in fact. Trump and the MAGA Republicans against Taylor Swift.
This can't possibly go well for the Trump wing, Charlie. I mean, right, so obviously there's the whole Taylor Swift NFL thing where conservatives think, oh, she's ruining football because they keep showing her, even though they don't actually show her that much. And also, they never object to anyone else being shown. It's only a woman, a rich, successful woman that they don't like showing because they have a whole problem with the whole idea of rich, successful women in the first place. But so MAGA's mad at her. They're mad at her too for her political views. She has yet to make any sort of endorsement in the 2024 election, but we generally know how she stands politically. She's endorsed a Democrat in Tennessee in 2018. I believe she did endorse Biden in 2020, and there's a good chance she does the same thing. Also, her voter registration initiatives make her very unpopular with Republicans, which is very telling that they don't like voter registration. But Trump is apparently very mad about Taylor Swift's popularity because he's a narcissist. So he wants to fledge a quote-unquote holy war against Taylor Swift in the lead up to the election. And he believes that he is more popular than her, Charlie. Spoiler alert, he's not.
No, I mean, and anyone who agrees with that, I think, is frankly insane. I just don't see any way that this ends well for him.
No, I think that alienating Taylor Swift's fans is a very, very bad idea, given that there's a lot of them. She is one of the most popular people in the country. Now, Fox News can keep on saying, well, she shouldn't be endorsing Biden because that would alienate a bunch of Trump supporters. Why would she want to lose all of her audience? Well, she did endorse Biden in 2020, and her tour was the most successful tour of all time. And that, last I checked, was after the election, so things still seem to be going pretty well for Taylor Swift, Charlie.
Yeah, and I did also want to focus on the fact that it's not even the fact that it's Trump. I think anyone trying to go against Taylor Swift would have a very difficult time.
No, but Trump is the perfect person to do it because, again, he's such a narcissist, right? He thinks that he is the most important. He believes that he is the most popular person in the country. He's not. He is one of the most unpopular. He just has a base that he essentially operates like a cult.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about our show here is we always manage to somehow circle back to things. We may completely forget about them. They may be from last year, but they always find a way to come back. And yeah, Peter Navarro's back, and now he's in prison.
Yeah, I think we named an episode after him, Charlie. It was not a great name of an episode,
No,
but
we need to do another episode rankings.
yeah, I think we maybe
People
we'll
look
do
at
that at our
people look
100th
after
episode
that.
because we're coming out up on that sometime soon. But yeah, Peter Navarro, he was arrested back in 2022, I believe, for contempt of Congress for not going through or not being willing to testify at the January 6th hearings. It's not going great for Navarro. He's now been sentenced to 4 months in prison. It was a maximum of a year, but no one really expected him to get the full year. So hopefully this teaches Navarro his lessons. And again, as much as Republicans like to say it, that Democrats, they won't comply with their subpoenas. Well, look who's going to prison for not complying with their subpoena, Charlie.
Yes, indeed. Now I think a lot of people don't really know who Dean Phillips is. So, can I give a little explanation on why he's part of our show this week?
Yeah, so we've mentioned him a couple times before. He's running for president as a Democrat. He's challenging Biden. Really, his only real policy position seems to be
Challenging is a strong word.
it's not even a policy position. Is the thing. It's Biden's too old. He can't beat Trump. I'm running because I can beat Trump, even though Biden beat me in New Hampshire by 40 points, despite me not being on the ballot there. So just a nonsensical campaign for Dean Phillips. He's going absolutely nowhere, but the reason I want to bring him up is he's started mentioning that America needs a third party, that most Americans want a third party, right? I don't disagree that a third party system is better. The problem is the way that our Constitution is written makes it very difficult for there to be a third party in America. So in a way, if you're running on the platform of there needs to be a third party, in some ways you're running against the constitutional system because it's just not something that would work under our Constitution. So the other problem with it is that it's not even a policy position. I mean, you're essentially, if that's your platform, you're essentially saying, if you're doing like the Andrew Yang, who's a close ally of Dean Phillips, like, America needs a third party, I'm the placeholder here. This is the third party. Does it do anything? No, not really. It just is here to say we need a third party. A third party should ideally be formed organically. But again, that's not how it really could work in our system. But the reason I bring this up is because I have a feeling that I know where this is going, which is that there's a good chance that Dean Phillips, in the name of the third parties, when he inevitably loses to Biden in the Democratic primary, he ends up launching a third-party bid of his own. And therefore, the campaign of Dean Phillips, which started out as the campaign meant to prevent Donald Trump from winning, is the one that will likely hand Donald Trump the presidency if Dean Phillips goes through with that, proving once and for all that Dean Phillips never really cared about beating Trump, never really cared about the Democratic Party, about small d democratic values either, and he may very well kill our democracy in the process.
Yeah, we will have more coverage on that, obviously, as as the election cycle continues to rapidly hurtle towards November.
Yeah.
Now, we have some certainly more interesting news from Alabama, who's executed a man for the first time using nitrogen.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie,
why is this important, and what could this mean for the future of prison execution?
Well, so it's a very, very inhumane way to execute people. I mean, there's very few humane ways to execute people, but that's definitely not one of them. It's something that I hope that we don't see again. There's other states trying to do the same things now, taking Alabama's lead. I don't want to get into a whole death penalty discussion right now, but I am against the death penalty. I think that in general it's inhumane. You can't go back from it if it turns out that the person was falsely convicted, and I don't think it's really that big of a deterrent. So I'm against it in general, but you should definitely be against it if it's nitrogen gas executions, because it's extremely inhumane and unsafe.
Why is nitrogen particularly worse than any of the other current forms used?
Yeah, you suffer for a long time, Charlie.
Ah, okay. Now, let's move on to the international side of things, where the crisis in the Middle East is continuing to widen. We were getting reports last week of there were several, there was some in Iran, there was some in Pakistan, there was a response, a U.S. military base were attacked, and now we have another example of a drone strike, this time in Jordan, I believe.
Yep. On a U.S. military base.
On the U.S. military base, in which 3 U.S. Service members were killed and many more were injured. Now, we're unsure if this attack at this moment, if this was an attack carried out directly by Iran or by its proxies, but it is very likely that Iran did have something to do with this attack.
Correct.
And this is likely because Hamas, currently fighting Israel, a U.S. ally, is a proxy of the Iranian government. Now,
essentially, yes. And Charlie, I want to mention really, really quickly on this topic, there's quite a few people on the far left, the same people who are defending Hamas, who are now defending this attack on the U.S. military base because the U.S. is illegally occupying Jordan, so they got to do something about it. Okay, first of all, if that was true, it should be Jordan doing something about it, not Iran. Second of all, we're not occupying them. We have a military base there because we're allies with them. The only thing that the far left seems to connect all of their positions is that they really seem to hate America, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true.
And finally, on this part of the show, we've gotten an Inspector General report from the Trump White House. And Charlie, it involves drugs. Lots of drugs. Ronnie Jackson, the former White House doctor under Trump, who's now a congressman, he was allegedly essentially the fixer in the White House. They called him the candy man because he would just give out drugs to essentially anybody with no screening, including a lot of opioids, Charlie. Not good.
No, really not good. And it just seems the more we learn about this stuff, the more and more people surrounding the Trump White House are involved in some kind of scandal or issue
Everyone.
or controversy.
Everyone there. Just an absolute nightmare.
I mean, it's
Charlie.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, all right. You've got a stat for us as we move on to the second half of our show?
Yes, I do. And that is, we have seen some ridiculous scoring in the NBA recently, with players constantly throwing out 60, even 70 points. So my question for you is, before this last round of players scoring more than 60, when was the last time that 2 NBA players scored 60 plus on one night?
On one night? All right, so let's see. I know Donovan Mitchell scored 71 back, but he was the only person to score that much, or that many points that night, I believe. I don't know. I can't even really go farther back than that.
Yeah, it's a long way back. April 9th, 1978, David Thompson and George Gervin. Thompson had 73 and Gervin had 63.
Yeah, it's honestly incredible just how many 60-plus point
and we'll
performances we've had in the last week or so. Yes, we will.
Let's talk about the NFL.
Championship weekend, Charlie. We now know who's going to the Super Bowl, and we will give our Super Bowl preview next week.
No one wants.
No one really wants. I don't mind it that much. I will be rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs as a Seattle fan. Charlie, let's start with that first game. Chiefs beating the Ravens in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, just a very flat game from Baltimore.
Yeah,
they just
very.
Not let themselves. Chiefs defense did what they needed to do and got the win. So, but something that I thought was interesting that I've heard is a lot of people had very different things to say about Lamar Jackson than they did with Josh Allen, even though what happened to both of them were rather similar.
Was it though? I mean, Lamar threw into triple coverage and threw an interception at like the one time of the game where you can't do that. You've got to get at least 3 points there, and he throws into triple coverage, interception in the end zone. I mean, what's he thinking?
I mean, yeah, but when it comes down to it, they both lost to Patrick Mahomes under very different circumstances. But I feel like Allen got a lot of fire for what happened, and I think Lamar Jackson should get more for what happened in that game.
I don't know. I think Lamar should. I think Allen there's criticism you can make, but I think ultimately most of it has to lie on the kicker. I also thought with this game, like 4 possessions in, 3 touchdowns were scored. I was like, okay, we're going for a shootout. Might be even last team who has the ball is going to win the game. That's not what happened at all. A lot of defense after that. Honestly, both defenses did a really great job in the later part of the game. But Charlie, I want to get to Patrick Mahomes. We keep hearing these things. Oh, well, can he do this? Can he do that? Can he win an AFC championship on the road?
Yes.
Yes, he can. He's proven it. What else in this league does he have to prove? He has proved every single doubter wrong. 2 MVPs.
Here's a question for you.
Charlie, just a sec. 6 straight AFC championship appearances, 4 of them going to the Super Bowl. 2, maybe 3 will result in Super Bowl victories. In 6 seasons in the league. I mentioned the 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs as well. He has lost 2 games in the AFC playoffs ever. He has proven everything he needs to prove. He is right up there already among the greatest of all time. He already arguably has the greatest peak of a quarterback ever. To beat Brady, all he needs is the longevity.
Yeah, and I think maybe 1 or 2 more rings.
Well, that's what I mean by longevity too, though. He needs more rings.
Yeah, because as long as he stays in the league, I don't think really there's any stopping that Chiefs team for a while.
Yeah, the AFC still runs through Kansas City. There were doubters all season, but it remains true. The AFC runs through Kansas City. It runs through Patrick Mahomes. It runs through Travis Kelce, who didn't have a great regular season, but really turned it on in the playoffs. Really, really impressive stuff from him.
However, how many more, you have to ask, how many more seasons does he have left?
Yeah, I do wonder that, and I do wonder about how the Chiefs will do once he's gone, but...
And you can ask the same question about Andy Reid.
We've doubted Mahomes over and over again, and he keeps on performing.
Yes, he does. Now, let's take a little break from the interesting things, and I'll give you a minute to talk about tennis.
Hey, you never even covered the other game.
Oh yeah, good point. Honestly, I completely forgot this game happened.
I would like to forget that this game happened.
The Lions, I mean, it's the Lions. This had to happen. Lions fans aren't allowed to be happy. No one wants the 49ers to be there, but it's the way it is. And with this Lions team, they will be back. Sure. I think that's the most important part.
Everything went wrong for the Lions, right? They started out so well. They started out so well, but everything went wrong. They dropped 2 interceptions. One of them resulted in one of the most insane catches I have honestly ever seen. Brock Purdy got extremely lucky on that catch by Brandon Ayuk. The 4th down decisions, passing, dropped passes left and right. Charlie, I do want to know what your thoughts were on those 2 4th downs, though. Was it the right call to go for it?
I mean, this is going to be debated forever.
Yes, it will.
I think if you look at it from if you look at it from a pure game standpoint, like what was going on at that time with the momentum, I don't think you do it. I think you kick the field goal.
Yeah, I think momentum was key.
But I think that if you look at it from a pure analytics standpoint, I think you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions didn't have the greatest kicker. They've gone for it on 4th down time and time again this season. It's they've converted most of the time. Dan Campbell, he has a history of going for it. He's aggressive. That's who the Detroit Lions are at their core. Do you change that in the playoffs? At the same time, though, I feel like you got to take the points. I mean, I admire Dan Campbell's aggressiveness. It's one of the things I like most about him. It's why he's one of my favorite coaches in the National Football League. I just don't know about these ones. It'll be debated for a long time, including in my own head.
Yeah, and in the heads of many. Now,
including all the Lions fans who will continue to suffer.
Let you talk about tennis.
Yeah, Australian Open semifinals and finals took place over the last week, and some pretty shocking results, honestly. Novak Djokovic going down to Jannik Sinner in the men's semifinals. His first ever loss in Melbourne in the semifinals or later. He was 20-0 in the semifinals and finals. Finally goes down, just did not look right. And then in the other men's semifinal, Alexander Zverev, who, if you'll remember, is an accused domestic abuser, had a 2-set-to-love lead and blew it to Daniil Medvedev two tiebreakers in the third and fourth set, and then Medvedev won outright in that final deciding set. Really bad loss for Zverev. Essentially as bad as Medvedev's loss in the final to Sinner, with Sinner now winning his first major championship. Medvedev, he was up 2 sets to love, and Sinner came back and won. Medvedev now 1-5 in major finals. He has the big win over Djokovic in straight sets at the U.S. Open from 2021, but that's it. Now lost in the finals from up 2 sets to love twice, both in Australia. And then on the women's side, final ended up being Sabalenka versus Zhang. Sabalenka won every single set that she played in Melbourne. An incredible tournament for her. I'd argue the best player in the women's game at the moment, even though she may not have that ranking right now. Charlie?
Yeah, I don't watch much tennis, but I'll take your word for it. Now let's move on to a topic that we haven't covered at all in a while. Let's get to some European soccer, because we have missed quite a bit.
Yes, we have, and let's start with, honestly, some of the biggest news, which is that Jurgen Klopp is leaving Liverpool, Charlie, at the end of this season. That's a huge loss for that team.
Yeah, but would you agree that you think it was about time?
I don't know. He's a great coach. He's leaving, I guess. I think he's just exhausted from coaching. I don't know, and I think Liverpool.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
It was right for him, not for Liverpool.
No, certainly, and that's what I'm asking. Do you think it was time for it to be done?
I mean, if that's what he wants, sure, whatever makes him happy. Now, in the Premier League, Liverpool does lead the Premier League by 5 points as of this taping. Man City currently in second. However, Man City's played one fewer game. We could be heading towards a pretty good battle in the final. Just over a dozen games left in the season. Now, on the relegation side of things, Sheffield United and Burnley almost certain to be relegated. Beyond that, though, there's a bit of a battle. Everton, Luton Town, Nottingham Forest, all right there, Charlie. It could be a pretty intense battle down the back half of the season.
Certainly, yeah. Just top 5 and bottom 5 real quick. Liverpool is on top, followed by Man City, Arsenal, Tottenham, and Aston Villa. And as for the bottom 5, from 16th down, Nottingham Forest, Luton, Everton, Burnley, and Sheffield.
Yeah, Charlie, are you surprised to see Chelsea kind of right in the middle of the pack? Not great for them.
Given the last few years, yeah, I did expect them to be doing a little bit better, but yeah, it is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, now, some other leagues, Charlie, we have some surprises. Real Madrid, they're not leading the Premier League right now. It's Girona at the moment. Real Madrid in second, only back by 1 point. Atletico Madrid in third. Barcelona in fourth. Kind of a shocker there.
You mean La Liga, presumably, not the Premier League.
So yes, La Liga in Spain. In the German Bundesliga, it's not Bayern Munich on top right now. They're in second. Bayer Leverkusen.
Bayern's in second. Stuttgart in third. Dortmund in fourth, and Leipzig in fifth.
Yeah, it would be a big upset. I feel like if Bayern Munich did end up losing, but still a lot of season to go there. Too in Italy, it's Inter Milan.
Bayern's only down by 2 points.
Yes. Inter Milan on top in Italy followed by Juventus and AC Milan, and in France, no surprise, it's PSG on top by 6 points, where I assume they'll remain forever, probably.
I mean, likely. All right, let's get to the coaching carousel, because it's literally just the Commanders left.
Yeah, everyone else has a head coach. The Chargers, they have Jim Harbaugh. Michigan has replaced him with Sharon Moore. Seahawks hiring Mike McDonald. Falcons hiring Raheem Morris, and Panthers hiring Dave Canales. What are your thoughts on these, Charlie?
Well,
good choices, bad choices?
There is a notable absence from that list of coaches.
Vrabel? Belichick?
Vrabel be I was going to say Belichick, but yes, Vrabel is among those, but no Belichick.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised. I'm not that surprised. I'm more shocked, I think, that Vrabel doesn't have a job yet. I don't even know if he's in contention for that for that Commander's job. We'll see who they end up going with. We know that they wanted the offensive coordinator from the Lions, but he pulled his name out of contention. He's staying in Detroit, so they'll have to go back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah, they certainly will. So, yeah, Jim Harbaugh's off the board as well, going to LA, as well as
To escape all the punishments that are inevitably coming
escape
from
all the
the
punishments
NCAA to Michigan.
with Michigan hiring Sharon Moore to replace him. Now, let's get to one of my favorite topics at the show, basketball, particularly Warriors basketball, in a very particular instance of Warriors basketball. Colin, do you want me to take this one?
I'll just say it. A certain somebody may have flown all the way down to San Francisco from Seattle just to watch their favorite team play a basketball game against the Lakers, and it may not have gone great.
By not going great, you mean fouling LeBron James with 1 second left in double overtime?
Yes, like it was really fun until those last couple seconds. I mean, they hit it like in the last 6 or so seconds of the game or overtime. They 3 times hit a game-tying or go-ahead shot. Now, Charlie, I don't know how much of the game you watched, but you have to agree with me. The refs were absolutely terrible at their job. It was
I watched
really
none of it. In fact, I was at the UW Husky game against Utah.
Did that go better?
Yeah, the Huskies won by 30.
Oh, dang it. Yeah, no.
Well, better for me anyway.
Yeah, Curry had a really impressive performance for the Warriors. Overall, a fun game until the last second again.
So, shall we take a look around the
Warriors?
association?
It's been rough going for the Warriors recently.
Yeah, let's take a look around the league. Celtics still in first in the East. Bucks are starting to fall back. The Knicks are on fire. They've won 8 games in a row, 9 of their last 10. So has Cleveland. They're now 3 and 4 respectively. Philly dropping back a little bit. They've dropped 4 in a row. Indiana is the last non-play-in team, followed by the Heat, who have really struggled recently. Orlando, Chicago, and there's a battle for that final spot between Brooklyn and Atlanta. Atlanta currently has it for now. In the West, Timberwolves still hold a very slim lead in the West, with the Thunder 1 game back. Clippers surging now only 2 games behind, followed by the Nuggets.
Yeah, the Thunder I think would be in first, right? If they hadn't,
if they hadn't lost to the Pistons.
The
that happened. The Kings in 5th, Suns in 6th. And as for the play-in teams, you have the Pelicans, the Mavericks, the Lakers, and then again battle for that 10th spot between the Jazz Rockets. After that, it just falls off a cliff. You have the Grizzlies, Trailblazers, and Spurs, and of course you have the 3 disaster teams in the East of Charlotte, Washington, and Detroit.
Hey, at least the Warriors aren't considered a disaster team.
Okay, we're always a disaster team every year.
Yes, you are. One quick note on the Clippers, though, Charlie. You know that they're building a new arena, yes?
Yes, they are. And I saw something that they're going to try to hang a jersey from every single California high school basketball team in the arena.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, which I think really makes up for their lack of championship banners. I guess they didn't want the rafters to be empty.
Yeah, I guess not. How many is that?
There's a lot of high schools in California, and I imagine that most of them have basketball, right? If you have any sports at your high school, you probably have basketball. So,
all right, it's
going to be a lot of teams.
All right, while we continue through this, I will be looking through the California Department of Education to see what I can find. I found my answer. My answer is 1,299.
Yeah, so I guess they'd have the most.
That's not gonna work.
The Raptor. No, I don't. It could. They wouldn't be able to hang them all in the rafters. They just hang them up somewhere around the arena.
Somewhere.
It's actually kind of a cool idea. Actually, I just like roasting the Clippers.
I just don't know how it's gonna work. Now, college basketball can't stop being insane. So,
but that's the nature of college basketball.
Yeah,
right?
Care to give a rundown of what we've missed in the last 5 seconds?
Yeah, this is from the last week. This is just upsets of top 10 teams, Charlie. Florida has upset Kentucky. Georgia Tech upset UNC. South Carolina upset Tennessee. Iowa State upset Kansas. Mississippi State upset Auburn. And Oregon State upset Arizona. And I might be missing a couple. It's wild. And this Saturday is going to be one of the craziest days of college basketball ever. we're going to have 3 top 10 matchups. Houston's going to be playing Kansas at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Duke is playing UNC 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and then at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, Tennessee is playing Kentucky. It could be an incredible day of college basketball. Now, Charlie, I want to get to our bubble watch here as we look towards the NCAA tournament, just a few weeks out from Selection Sunday now. The Mountain West could somehow send 5 teams to the tournament. Utah State, Colorado State, New Mexico, all probably locks. San Diego State too. And then Boise State, they could make it. Nevada may have lost their chance, but maybe they could make a comeback. The Big 12, they could send up to 11 teams. They are the best conference in college basketball by far. I mentioned Houston and Kansas, but it keeps going down. Oklahoma, Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, Texas, Cincinnati. I mean, the list just goes on in that conference. It is the best conference. And the ACC, meanwhile, they have a couple good teams at the top, Duke and UNC, and Clemson's decent, but everyone else is kind of meh. Those might be the only teams that the ACC sends to the tournament. And then, Charlie, Gonzaga, they might not be able to get in that large bid. They might have to win the West Coast Conference tournament in order to make it, which would just be wild to not have Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. They have been one of the most consistent teams for years and years and years.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see that fall. I don't really know exactly what has gotten into that. Players leaving, just eventually, success just won't come. But yeah, they're just not where they used to be.
Yeah, and then on the women's side, real quick, Tara Vanderveer, the Stanford head coach, she has set the win record in NCAA basketball, men's or women's. One of, if not the greatest, college basketball coach of all time, Charlie.
Oh, absolutely. Now, before we wrap things up, Formula One did something, in my opinion, that I think was really damaging to its sport. They rejected Andretti's plan to create an F1 team and join the sport. Now, the problem with this is if the team was instead a Aramco Shell TikTok Formula One team, that would have likely gotten in. And I think that F1 is starting to devalue racing importance over making money. And that's a problem that's really coming into fruition over the course of the last few seasons, and it's really starting to become visible. So the health of the sport is very much in jeopardy. But
is that not every sport, though?
Sir, it certainly is. But the season starts in just a few weeks, and we will get to that when the season starts. All right, and with that, I think that'll do it.
Yep, thanks for listening to C&C Talks. Make sure you subscribe. Episodes every single week, wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, cctalks.com, has everything you need to know about the show, and you can call us with your questions, as always, at 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast and follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. And of course, you can join our Discord server. We'd really love that, to be able to chat with you. cctalks.com/Discord. All of this information and more is in the description below. But for now, for our producer Morris, production designer Zach, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. We'll see you next week.